In this video, I'm going to show you my recipe for old school sweet potato pie. Is it really better than pumpkin pie? We're going to get into this video and find out. We're going to first wash 2 pounds of sweet potatoes, and I have a funny story about this. So I'm rinsing these sweet potatoes under cold water, and I'm using a vegetable brush to clean the dirt off the sweet potatoes. Now what happened, I went to Walmart. That was my first mistake, and I bought these sweet potatoes that you see, but I'm a naive and trusting soul. What I didn't realize is how much mold and discoloration. I thought it was just on the surface, but that wasn't actually the case. So I was going to have y'all talk about me. I threw those away and I went to HEB where I should have gone in the first place, and that's exactly how the potatoes should be looking. So Walmart got me good. Am I mad about those 86 cents that I wasted? A little bit, but we're going to keep it moving. It's all right. So I preheated the oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit, and what we're going to do with these potatoes is we're going to bake them. There's 2 ways you can go about it. You can bake them or you can boil them. It's way too much work trying to boil these, so I'm just going to put them in the oven, and it helps with the flavor as well because they're not as watered down. But what we're going to do before we bake them is we're going to poke some holes into both of the potatoes. This will allow the heat to penetrate deep into the potatoes so they all cook evenly. While I personally think it's safer to use a fork for this, you can use a knife as well. Either works. I then place the potatoes over parchment paper on a cookie sheet. This will prevent the potatoes from sticking to the cookie sheet, as they may bust open a little bit as they bake. So we're going to bake them in the oven for around 60 minutes. And once they're done after 60 minutes, I'm just going to remove them from the oven, and I'm going to allow them to rest for around 10 to 20 minutes so they can cool off slightly. That way they'll be easier to handle as we try to peel them. Temperature on the oven to 350 degrees because what we're going to do now is par bake our pie crust. And I made my pie crust from scratch. Now, if you want to be lazy and use the frozen or store-bought pie crust, be my guest. No judgment here. But whether it's store-bought or made from scratch, you will have to par bake it unless you want soggy crust, and I don't think anyone wants soggy crust. And what I just did is I placed parchment paper inside the pie crust, and I placed some coffee beans on top of the parchment paper. You can use pie weights as well if you have that. I don't have pie weights. I'm making do with what I have, and I'm going to bake it in the oven for around 20 minutes. And while that's baking, we're going to move on to peeling the sweet potatoes, as they should have cooled off some by now. So I'm just going to pierce it a bit with a knife. And at this point, they baked long enough that the skin should peel right off, as you see on the screen. Now I'm using gloves for this, not only because it will get a bit messy, but the potatoes are still quite warm, so it's a lot easier to handle the potatoes with gloves on. But it's optional, you don't have to use gloves, even though I do recommend it. And once you peel all of that skin off, what we're going to do is move on to the next step. So we're going to take those sweet potatoes and I'm going to place them into this 3-quart mixing bowl that you see. So once I place them in there, what I'm going to do now is mash the sweet potatoes. I'm using the cooking spoon just to pre-mash them, so they're a lot easier to actually mash once I get the masher in a little bit. Unfortunately, these were fairly big potatoes that I used, so they didn't completely fall apart after I peeled them and put them in the bowl, so had to give them a bit of a head start. So now I'm mashing them. Now I know someone's going to come along and see this and say, why not just use a food processor? There's a good reason why I'm not using a food processor, which I'm going to show you in a little bit. Using the food processor might work if you're making pumpkin pie because pumpkin is considered a fruit, but you have to do things a bit differently with sweet potatoes because sweet potatoes are considered a root. And as you're trying to mash and puree these sweet potatoes, you will have to constantly scrape the bottom and sides of the bowl so that you're not leaving any of the sweet potatoes behind. So instead of using the food processor or blender, I'm going to use a hand mixer. You can use a stand mixer as well, but mine is stored away and then you got to clean it up, and I ain't got time for all that. If you do, more power to you. So I just finished mixing them on low to medium speed for 1 to 2 minutes. Now this is the reason to use a mixer. You see all those strings that are hanging off of the mixer attachment? You don't want those strings in the sweet potato pie because that's how the pie comes out grainy. So I have water off screen next to the bowl. I'm going to dip the attachments in there to clean them. And once those attachments are clean, we're going to continue mixing the sweet potatoes in 30-second intervals until we get rid of all of those strings. And we're going to keep repeating the step that I showed you, cleaning the strings off of the attachments after every 30-second interval. And again, after each interval, you're going to want to scrape the sides and the bottom of the bowl to ensure that you're getting all of those sweet potatoes and you're not leaving any behind. And realistically, you're not going to get rid of all of the strings, but what you want to do is continue repeating these steps until you no longer see any strings that are apparent to the eye. I didn't see any that were apparent to my eye, so I moved on to the next step. So first I'm going to scrape off some of that sweet potato that's stuck onto the spoon, and then I'm going to add the other ingredients. So here I have 1/2 cup of melted unsalted butter. We're going to pour that in there, and then I'm going to add 2 extra large eggs. We're going to dump that in there as well. Then we're going to give it all a good stir until those eggs are broken up and everything is well combined. And once that's done, we're going to move on to adding the next ingredients. And for the next ingredients, we're going to start off by adding our spices. And you'll see on the screen all of the spices and the measurements that I'm using. If you miss it, you can check my link below in the description to see the full recipe. I just added 1/2 cup of dark brown sugar, and I'm adding 1/2 cup of white granulated sugar, teaspoon of vanilla extract, and then we're going to give everything a good stir until it's well combined. And it has to be dark brown sugar. The dark brown sugar is what gives the pie the pretty color you saw earlier, and the extra molasses really takes this to a whole nother level. So I just added also a 1/2 cup of half and half, which is half whole milk and half heavy cream, and I'm going to stir it until it's well combined with the other ingredients. And once that's done, we're going to set it aside. And while we were doing that, the pie crust was baking in the oven, so we just removed it from the oven. 20 minutes have passed, and we're going to remove those coffee beans from the pie crust as well. Just going to lift it up with the parchment paper, and I'm using kitchen shears to cut off the overhanging edges of the pie crust that I made. So now we're going to pour the filling into the pie crust. Some of the pie crust crumbs on the baking sheet. I know it's lazy, I'll clean it up after the fact. Pie crust all the way to the top. We're just going to spread it around till it forms an even layer, as that filling will be on the thicker side. And finally, we're going to place a pie shield around the crust so that it doesn't burn up. I'm using a silicone pie shield. You could use a metal pie shield or a makeshift pie shield if you desire. And then we're just going to place it in the oven and allow it to bake for 50 minutes at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Once it's done, we're going to remove it from the oven as well as remove the pie shield. And once we remove that, we're going to allow the pie to rest at room temperature for at least 2 hours. This will allow time for the pie to firm up on the inside. You don't want to cut into it too soon because then it may end up runny and fall apart. Now, circling back around to our question at the beginning of the video, is it really better than pumpkin pie? I'll let you decide. Let me know in the comments below what you think. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more of these recipes, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.